is Mhairi, and we are going to record another episode of Ramblings with a Lymphoma Lunatic. And we're going to hear all about her story, how we know each other, how we're friends, the fact that we've bonded over cancer.
Who would have ever guessed?
It's a nice way though for like people to see that there is like good things that come out of it. And
outcomes.
you know, I find like before we met or did courage or anything, I didn't have anyone to really speak to who knew what I was going through. I don't have, luckily, anyone close to me that's been through anything. So,
like
not only is it like having a cancer community, but like you're actually my friend.
I know.
Now, which is lovely. But yeah, if you just want to like introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay, so I'm Mhairi. I'm 51. I'm from Dice. And as Kelly has mentioned, we've met through our courage journey, through friends at Anchor and taking part in courage. So yeah, I'm cancer free at the moment, and I shouldn't say that, but I can't help to say that. I'm getting some immunotherapy treatment, which was going to last for a year, which should finish in the end of September. Yeah, here we are, going to share my little story.
Before I put the camera on, we were just saying that it's been a year.
Yes.
So it's actually quite a
surgery anniversary yesterday, 1 year.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to kind of explain in your own words like a little bit about the type of cancer you have? And of course, and I think if you've got any symptoms or anything, because that's always like really good for people to hear, just for like making people aware.
Absolutely. So for me, I was at work, I was working, you know, I was just had turned 50 in the February, and this was kind of, my mum's illness had just kind of come up apparent and established as a vascular dementia, so there was a lot going on. I'm an only child, I just got my own kids, and my cousins I've only got like my auntie and my cousin here, and they're very good in help, but trying to get everything organised with my mum, full-time work, stressful, busy, just life in general. And as I say, I turned 50 and I was just feeling really tired, and I was always coming home, and I remember saying to Russell, standing in the kitchen, being like, oh, I'm so tired, and my back, just my lower back is so sore. Just I thought, you know, well, I'm 50 now, oh my God, I'm old, it's menopause, and it's downhill from here on, and you know,
you're on your feet all day.
Yeah, I'm on my feet all day, and I'm tired, and that's just it. And then I'd come home from my shift one night, and I remember it so clearly because, so my oldest daughter Leah doesn't live at home. Her and her partner have their own house in County Wells, and she really likes to cook, and her dad really likes to cook. So they'd done this thing when I worked on a Saturday that they would sometimes go out and they'd find a recipe, and you know, they'd go and do a bit of shopping, and they would make something nice and would have a nice meal. But on this occasion, I was coming home and I knew they'd gone all out. Come home, flowers on a table set, wine. They'd really like huge effort in the meal. And then we were just going to sit in the evening and have a glass of wine, play cards, just family stuff. Lovely evening. And then I was just getting ready to go to bed, as you do, in the bathroom, teeth brush, blah, blah, blah. Went to the toilet and stood up and looked and thought, oh, that's not right. And it was just blood. It was just blood. And I thought, okay, right, well, it's a Saturday night, just keep an eye over the weekend. Maybe you're away to get a really bad period again. In my head, I'm thinking of this menopause symptoms and stuff. So that was okay, and there was no, without being gross, there was no other bleeding. I wasn't actually bleeding, it was always just contained in my urine. So there was nothing when I cleaned myself, there was nothing, it was just when I went for a pee and it was there. So it kind of just progressively got worse over the weekend. I had no pain, I had nothing at all. But every time I passed urine, it wasn't pleasant. So I, first thing on the Monday, made an appointment, phoned the nurse and said, I need to see somebody, I need to take a sample around. They said, perhaps you've got an infection. I said, well, I'm not being funny. I think it's a bit more than an infection. I've got no pain, I've got no UTI symptoms, I'm not sore when I pass urine, you know, that crampy feeling sometimes you go for a pee and you know, oh, it stings, it's sore, and you can't
None of
finish
that.
what none of that. So she's like, come round, take a sample. She took one look at the sample and was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get the doctor through. So he said, yeah, I think we'll send you for an urgent scan. That was the end of April. That was the Saturday, was the 29th, I think, of April. And the general consensus was a kidney stone.
Okay, so did you
So-
feel okay with that? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, it made sense. Totally made sense. So where I work on Ward 210 in ENT, and on the opposite side of the ward is the 200, behind is 209, but on the opposite side at 211 is urology's outpatient clinics. So we've all worked together over the years. I know a lot of the urology girls, I knew a lot of the urology specialist nurses, and I had a chat with one of them one day, gone back to work on the Wednesday, and I saw her sitting on her own in her clinic room, and I grabbed her just on the off chance and said, you don't mind if I just ask you a quick question? She's like, sure, what's wrong? And I said, well, blood and urine, and you know, I started, and she's like, hang on, stop, who are we talking about? Is it you? And I said, yeah. I said, briefly told her what had happened. I said, the only question I've got is, because I forgot to ask the GP, is this bleeding going to persist until the stone passes, or will it settle? Because it's, you know, it's not pleasant. And she's like, well, you know, I don't like the sound of this. She said, but you know, I'm quite reassured in the fact that you're young, you are fitting well. Are you diabetic? Are you this, or that? It's like, no, an underactive thyroid, no, nothing else, quite healthy. Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's probably a kidney stone, but you know, you work for the NHS, we don't have many perks. I'll speak to one of our consultants. I says, well, I've been referred for a scan. And she says, well, I'll go and have a chat and see if we can, you know, push that up a little bit. And I was like, oh, actually, very grateful, that's good, thank you. So she called me back on the Friday and said, one of the consultants who has senior referral, so we've kind of pushed it up a little bit. You should get word you're going to come in for, you're going to get an ultrasound. And I was like, oh, that's great, that's fine. But she said, what we'll do is, she's got a clinic on Saturday morning if you're free and can come in, and they'll give you a camera into your bladder, have a wee look and check that there's nothing in your bladder. And if that's fine, it probably is higher up, it'll be a kidney stone likely. Okay, that's fine. So we did that Saturday morning, camera clear, test was clear, nothing there. And I remember this really well because it was the next day, and I was just sitting at home, and I had this unbelievable pain like I had never felt in my life, and it was radiating from round my back, round into my groin, and sort of right down, and like right round and down into my groin. I suddenly felt really nauseous, and I was like, oh god. Now, I'd heard to pass a kidney stone is extremely painful, and kidney stone pain is excruciating. And I was sitting thinking, oh my goodness, this is it, I'm going to pass a kidney stone, it's happening, yay! And I stood up to go to the bathroom, and I was sick, and I was dizzy, and then I didn't collapse, but I ended up on the floor, and I have a little sort of sofa with a cushion out like yours, and I was leaning over the cushion, and I was like, oh my goodness, and Neve came down and was like, are you alright, what's going on? And I was in so much pain, I'd never experienced anything like it, like labour, and I said, I don't know, I don't feel well. So I phoned the GP and said, you know, every time I stand up, I'm vomiting, I can't move, I'm like, I was in so much pain. We'll get someone to call you back. So I said to her, I'm really sorry, like, she panicked, she was like, we're not going anywhere. And I said, well, when the phone searches around the corner, you're going to have to take me. Bless her, 20 at the time, and seeing your mum on the floor and in pain, she really didn't like it and panicked. So she phoned her dad straight away and was like, you need to come home. I can't get, mum's on the floor, like, she's really sore, she's being sick, and I don't know what to do. And he's like, okay. And when he came home, I'd managed to get up, and I'd gotten upstairs, and I was lying curled up on top of my bed, and just with that he come in and the phone rang and they said, come round. So I went round, got injections for pain, got injections for sickness, and they said, if this doesn't work within 12 hours and you're still in this much pain, then we're gonna have to admit you for pain relief. And I was like, right, okay. I was in my mind, not a big painkiller person. It takes a lot for me to want to take any tablets and medication. I'd rather just avoid it.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going home. I'm just going to go to bed. I'll be fine. I'm not going anywhere near hospital. So that was okay, and it passed. And I thought, okay. I took the next day off work because I was due to go back to work the next day, but I felt terrible, and I thought, I just felt rotten. Explained what had happened, and my boss has always been really understanding. And then I was at work. It was the 29th of May. Go for an ultrasound. Said to my boss again, I need to nip down, I've got an appointment at 8:30, is that okay? She's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. I got changed, I went down, and the guy was lovely, and we chatted, and I said to him, oh, can you see this pesky stone that's causing me all this grief? And it was like a light switched on in the room, or in fact it didn't, the light went out in the room. It become very serious, and would laugh because I had to drink lots of water in the run up to this thing.
Okay.
And he laughed and he said, my goodness, you must have floated here. He said, not only is your bladder full, your tummy is full of water, you're bubbling, I can see it on the screen, blah blah blah. So it was all very light-hearted and jovial till I asked that question. And he said, would you like me to tell you what I see? And I said, yeah. And he said, I don't see a stone. And he went into this huge speech, and I was just lying there going, oh shit, this is an I'm sorry talk, and I don't even know who you are, and you're telling me.
And this is just the guy doing the.
Yeah, and I don't know if he was a doctor, a radiologist, a scanning technician, I don't know what they're called. I didn't know who he was. And he said, oh, you will have to go, you'll be seen quite urgently by urology. What I see is this size, it's more of a lesion, you'll need bloods, you'll need follow-up scans, you'll be urgently followed up by urology. You went on to tell me about his experience with urology as a patient himself through his own testicular cancer experience, and ended his conversation with bad things happen to good people and you seem like good people. And I just walked out and went back upstairs and had to go back up to work, and walked straight into my boss's office and burst into tears and said, I don't really know what's just happened, but I've definitely just had an I'm sorry talk, and I don't know who he was. So it wasn't a kidney stone, and I never thought cancer.
No,
I had no indication. I was told, you're young, you don't qualify, you don't meet the criteria, that horrible word.
And even then, they're like kinda, you're sitting with a technician, so you're not even really.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not a consultant sitting telling you this.
No.
It's, like.
He'd know. I think he thought he was doing the right thing, but my boss just was furious and was like, he had no business to tell you any of those things.
No.
You don't know who he is.
That's what I'm sitting thinking.
Who is he? It's so unprofessional. That should have never happened. We had a huge long chat. She was upset for me, and she said, I need you to phone Russell. You need to phone Russell to go and sort of digest what's happened. So I phoned my husband, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know, but I don't want to be here. My head is just in a mess. And I said, he said, well, if you go home, I'm coming. And I said, but we can't, because Neve's at home. And if I go home and you come home, she's going to go, what's happened? So what's wrong? And it was me, and it was not long after Courage on the Catwalk it happened for that year. And a work colleague who is one of my closest friends now, she herself has been through her own cancer journey, and she's been such a support to me. But however, I knew she was off work because she'd had a few days off because she'd been to Courage and blah blah blah, and then she was off for a few days after. And my husband said, go and see Lucy, go and phone Lucy. I was like, it's like 9 in the morning. He's like, phone her. So I phoned her, and how are you? What are you up to? She's like, well, I'm actually in bed, I'm awake, you've not woke me up, but I'm like, are you not meant to be working? And I said, well, and I said to her, and she went, right, come to me. Phone Russell, tell Russell, come to me. So I went and camped out at her house And I phoned him and I said, I'm heading to Ellen, are you coming? And he said, do you know what, I'm not. He said, I think she's going to be a good person for you to talk to just now. You go and then I'll keep in touch, or I'll come out if you want me to, but I just think she's a good person for you to be with right now. So I went and hid in her house until my husband went home and phoned and said, Neve's gone to work, you can come home now. Because I couldn't face her, I had nothing to tell her. I couldn't bear giving her a worry, because I had no answers. And then very quickly, the following week, I had a letter telling me to come in at 9 a.m. the 17th of June. And then, yeah, that was it. He sat us down in this tiny shoebox of a room and he said, I'm really sorry. It's not good news. In fact, it's really not good news. He said, you have a very aggressive stage 3 renal cancer. And he showed my diagram and he said, you have a tumour in your kidney, which is eroded your kidney, and it's moving, and it's now sitting in your vena cava vein, which is one of the main veins that runs right through your body, your tummy, up across your shoulder. And he said, this is nasty. This is moving very fast. And he said, I've already listed you for a surgery. He said, and it's a major surgery. He said, because the only place left for this tumour to go is to your heart. He said, and you won't be here by Christmas.
Oh my.
He says, if we don't fix this now, you won't see Christmas. He said, and I'm only going by what I can see on the scan, and I don't know what it's going to look like when I get inside. So I need to prepare you for what's to come. And then looked round, and my husband was the weirdest shade of grey I've ever seen in my life. And he just about passed out and couldn't retain what he was saying. And that was it. Very quick. You need to go now to Woodend, pre-assessment. I've listed you for surgery. You need to get things in place. I said, my daughter has literally just left to go to Tenerife on Saturday. Do I need to get her home? And he said, how long is she away for? I said, your surgery's in 2 weeks, 2 days. And I said, she's away for 10 days. And he said, no, let her have her holiday. He gave me all this horrific statistics about 50-50 chance of survival, really high chance of bleeding out on the table because of the risk to the vein that they were going into. Absolutely horrific things he said to me. And I'll never forget the last thing he looked at me and he said, but my intention is to cure you of this. And that's my intention. And that just blew my mind. Because I was like, you could have started with that.
Yeah, instead of saying, I mean, they have stuff they have to tell you, but it's never going to make it nice to sit and have to hear, I'm really sorry you have to sit and hear that.
So it was really hard. Really hard. And as I say, Neve had just gone to Tenerife, and it was the Euros, the football, and Leah's partner, Callum, he had just left to go to Germany to watch a few Scotland games, so he was away. And I spent most of that morning in hospital getting lots of things done. And he said, you need to go home. He says, you've got a short time. He said, I'm wanting scans and I'm wanting things done. And you need to go and, get things in place and do what you need to do to be back for me in 2 weeks' time. And I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And then I walked out and we sat in the car and we said, shit, what do we do now? I don't know what to do. I had no idea what to do. I had no idea how to tell my kids. I had no idea how to tell anybody. And I remember we drove and we sat in the Duffy Park and we just sat in a daze thinking, right, what next? Where do we go? What do we start with? And my biggest fear was all the statistics and how aggressive and nasty he said it was. And I said, what if I get a scan and it's already too far gone, because he said it's going to head to your heart and it'll get to a point where surgery won't be an option. And I said, what if within 2 weeks it's grown and I can't get surgery? What if this is it? And I had to face full on, like, I could possibly die here. I just turned 50. I've got a whole life ahead of me. My children, my husband, my family. Hopefully weddings and grandchildren in the future. And it's just absolutely petrified. There's just no other word for it. It's just petrified. And then we just went home and we sat ourselves for a bit. And I had another really good friend. Unfortunately, I know you were saying nobody you knew had gone through anything like this before. And sadly, I'd had a few friends who'd had different diagnoses of cancer, and one was at that moment in time as well quite poorly, and others who had recovered and had gone on to do Courage and Brave. And my friend Ali had done Brave, and he had a cancer, he'd recovered, but his children were very similar ages to mine. And I said to Russell, I want to go and talk to Carol and Ali, and I want to talk to them about, how do you tell your kids something like this,
Yeah.
So we did that, we spoke to them, and then we went home, and he said he gave me all the advice that he could, which was so helpful, and I was grateful for it, and said, I've been there, I know what you're going through, we are right behind you, like right behind you. But you need to go home and you need to rest. So
it's like shocking to me to hear, like you were, not that you were fine, but you were saying you were like tired.
No, yeah, just tired.
And then,
a niggly little backache.
You can say things like, it started in April, and then now we're talking about, the May, the June.
Yeah, it was like 6.5 weeks.
But really, that's such a short space of time.
From the end of April to the 17th of June, I had a diagnosis and a surgery date.
You're sat there and it's like stage 3, it's very serious. It's serious to the point where they're saying you're getting a surgery as quickly as we can get it done. And even having your time to process that yourself, that's not a long time between hearing what you've had to hear and then actually having to go through
and try and process that. And it was just that, I remember that 2 weeks so vividly, being, who do we tell, what do we do? And we told who we wanted to tell, and then we just surrounded ourselves with those people, and it was just a little village.
You and your bubble.
Yeah, and that was our bubble, and I was fully supported. Russell was fully supported, the girls were fully supported. I remember, I've watched what you did with your mum.
Yeah.
And for your mum to sit and hear how unwell that you are, and what's going on, and what's going to happen, and how you're going to get out of this treatment as a parent, wow, that's so hard. Without a doubt, the worst thing, the hardest ever had to do was sit down and tell my girls. And I probably wasn't completely honest with it.
No, because your job is to protect them even when there's certain things you can't. So you wouldn't in that moment. Yeah.
I didn't tell them. I said, Callum came home from Germany, and I took Leah and Callum round on a pretense pop past. How was Germany? And he said, it's great, and then we had a chat, and then I said, Russell had said, whatever you do, don't faff about, we need to just do it, we need to tell them. No build up horribly, just we're gonna have to say it.
Yeah.
And I did, and I just watched her crumble, absolutely crumble. As soon as I said cancer, she just fell apart.
Because the thing is, with your girls are older than Millie, but that doesn't matter.
No,
Like,
God, no.
when you think about like you,
Doesn't matter how old they are.
you know, like you say, my mum hearing that about me, but then I think like to your girls, you're their world, really. Do you know what I mean? Their mum, the bond you have, how close you are. So no matter what age they are, hearing that is terrifying.
It's just heartbreaking.
Absolutely terrifying.
And to do it separately, I mean, in an ideal world, we would have told them together. But obviously, Neve was away, so we told Leah, we told Callum, and then Neve came home. And bless, she was the same, exactly the same. And she just couldn't believe it. She was just like, she kept saying, she kept looking at me and going, "No, you don't. No, you don't." I was like, I do. And by the time she came home, bless her, I only had a few days. It was like, she was away for 10 days, so it was a week. She came home and I had like a week left where I was going into surgery and had a week with her. And they were just, I mean, they were brilliant, they were scared, but they were so good. Never ever wanted them to think that I was going to go into surgery that either I wasn't going to recover from, and made it clear I was coming out of surgery. I said it's a big surgery, it's dangerous because it's in this vein and it's a very complicated surgery. But I never told them the statistics. I never told them, you know, because he'd said if I can remove what I see, but if there's any other traces and it's anywhere further up, you know, your outcome is very different and blah blah blah. And I just never, I didn't need them to have any of that concern until we knew that was a concern.
Yeah.
All they knew was I had a cancer, I had a tumour, I got my kidney removed, and I was getting the tumour that was now sitting in this vein removed, and basically I would have a whole new resection, a sort of rerouted blood flow to my heart, and that made it really complicated. It was going to be a long surgery, I was going to be in HDU after, and then I was going to go down to the ward. And that's all they needed to know.